I'm Mark Hare, and I'm a Principal Research Analyst at S&B Global Market Intelligence. And my focus areas are cloud security and security operations. When you're purchasing or migrating from a SIEM, there are a number of things that you really need to think about. And I've got a top three list that I'll run through with you. Number one is which vendor you select. Now, that's pretty obvious. You need to be very cautious as far as which vendor you're going to go with because you're going to be using this particular vendor for years. So one thing is because everything is moving to cloud and cloud native is really where people are looking to go. Obviously, you want a vendor that's heavily invested and an expert in cloud security, especially cloud native security. You want a vendor that can solve your specific use cases. Regardless of what they call the solution, look very carefully and analyze which use cases you want to solve, and especially which ones you may want to solve in the future, and then look at how a specific vendor can solve those use cases. And then lastly, look at the vendor itself. Established vendors tend to have an advantage because they have deep technical resources. They've probably been around for a while, and they probably have a lot of depth and breadth of security offerings beyond SIEM. And so, that's an advantage in that, you can buy other third-party programs and applications and try to integrate them with the SIEM, or you can buy the vendor-specific solution, which is pre-integrated. So it could be a plus for a lot of folks. Number two is platform support. Now, obviously, with a lot of folks, hybrid cloud today and increasingly becoming hybrid cloud, you want to make sure that that vendor that you select is going to support not only the clouds you're using today, plus on-premises, plus any other clouds that you may look to deploy in the future. You also want to look for a good fit with your organizational architecture. And what I mean by that is make sure that the telemetry and signal sources that you have are supported. If they're not supported, how hard are they to integrate? And also look at the degree of integration with other third-party tools and how easy or hard it is to do that integration. And if you're migrating from another SIEM, which you probably are migration services available? Look for either internal or partners that have done that specific migration before and can help you do that, because this is non-trivial and you really want somebody to help you that's done this in the past. Lastly, and this is one of my favorite sayings, is buy solutions, not acronyms. SIEM itself is an acronym, obviously, and a lot of us have bought into that, but it's morphing. They're not being necessarily called SIEMs anymore. They're being called security analytics platforms or detection engineering platforms or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, don't buy by acronym. Look to thoroughly understand the use cases you're looking to solve and find a solution that solves those use cases. Unfortunately, a lot of the legacy SIEMs, which were first created in the early 2000s, are simply falling short of what today's security operations teams require. And there's a number of reasons for that. Number one is the failure to fully support hybrid cloud and all the various variations of cloud and on-premises that folks are using today. So for example, you might have multiple cloud providers, you might have and do have on-premises workloads, and also have probably dozens of software as a service applications. And you'd like to ideally have a single tool that can address all of those. And a lot of those older kind of first generation SIEMs just never made the leap to be able to support all of that. And one of the reasons for that is that some of these vendors were just unable to refactor their legacy SIEM to be cloud native. And there's probably multiple reasons for that. One would be economic. They just didn't want to make the investment to do it. Number two, it might be technological. It was just too difficult to make that leap because they'd have to completely re-engineer the entire platform. So they just decided not to do it. One of the things that's also interesting is that we run, again, these annual surveys, and we asked over the last 5 years of response to these surveys, how many alerts in a given day they were unable to get to in a given day. So what percentage? Starting in 2020, that figure was about a third, 37%. And it went up 6% every year through 2023 when it finally crossed 50% and hit 53%. So that was pretty alarming. And we were trying to figure out through that whole period just exactly why that was the case. Fortunately, in 2024, it finally dropped, and it dropped pretty substantially, 11 points down to 43%. So why is this? We think there's a couple of reasons. One is I believe that The organizations are starting to improve their analytics. They're probably replacing some of those older SIEMs, and that's, increasing their productivity. And also some early gains from artificial intelligence, where we're combining classic AI and ML with generative AI, and that's resulting in increased staff productivity, increased accuracy, and faster remediation times. When organizations plan a SOC transformation, there are a number of things that you need to think about. And I've actually got 12 different steps I'm going to go through, which are documented in a paper that I did for Palo Alto if you want further detail. First one is the assessment phase. And this is obviously where you got to look at your existing SIEM, you've got to look at existing use cases, and then you want to map out which use cases that you want to deploy in the new SIEM and the new SOC system. And that's really just a kind of a classic gap analysis where you document it. Number two is planning. So you need to define your objectives, identify stakeholders that are going to be involved, look at critical and non-critical use cases, maybe nice to have use cases, and also document your milestones, workflows, and key performance indicators so that you can track that through the process. Number three is preparation. So this is where you're going to look at all your vendors, prospective vendors, evaluate the vendors, figure out which ones are on your short list, then do demos and POCs, kind of the classic acquisition process. Once you've settled on a vendor, then you need to jump into doing initial planning and training of your staff. Number four is implementation. So look at your highest priority use cases and data sources and deploy those first. Then run both systems in parallel. Consider data pipelining and data fabrics as tools that can help accelerate that process. Number five, data migration. This could be one of your most expensive and time-consuming parts of the project. You should migrate only what you have to. Since you're moving a lot of this data, maybe from on-premises systems to on the cloud, you're going to be paying ingress charges. You're going to have to do transformations, all that sort of thing. And so that's going to take time and could be costly. So migrate what you have to and archive the rest. Look at the data formats that they're in and what the cost to do transformation is going to be. And then again, using data standardization and certain tools like a data fabric or data federation can definitely be very helpful. Number six is testing and validation. So now you're going to run both systems for a time, you're going to compare them, and then you're going to identify and fix gaps which need to be taken care of. Number seven is optimization. So now we've got the new system running. What will typically happen with these new systems is they have a lot of AI and ML models, and those models need time to be able to more effectively work and to be tuned. So make sure you plan that into your plan. Also, it's a good time for you to look at which dashboards and reports that you need to create and customize. Number eight is training and adoption. So make sure your staff is fully trained at this point and begin to plan for your cutover. This is also a good time to test for your disaster recovery, high availability, and backup systems. Number nine is cutover. So this is where we're actually going to cut over to the new system. It's typically phased. And again, you're going to be running both systems in parallel here. And there's going to be many testing steps that need to be documented and tested. Number 10, post-implementation review. So we've implemented it. Now let's review the KPIs, make sure that you're achieving those, review the improvements, make sure that you've addressed any potential gaps and use case coverage, and also look at potentially replacing some other third-party tools with that SIEM vendor's tools. In other words, you might be able to disintermediate, is the term, these other tools which may not work as well as that vendor's tools. And it also might be a cost benefit because they might give you a cost break for moving to their platform. Then decommissioning of the old system. So that's just a matter of archiving all the old data from the previous SIEM. Keep in mind, though, you may need to keep it running for a period of time for compliance reasons. So, that may not be just a switch that you flip. And then lastly, number 12 is ongoing management. So most modern SIEMs, they are software as a service. So they are being maintained and patched by the vendor. So that will reduce the burden on your staff. But nonetheless, there's still some ongoing management, care, and feeding that needs to be done.